Always Sunny. We're back in, baby. More It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Season 1 was good, but wasn't anything special. With Season 2, does the show improve, or does it continue to not really be great? I don't have much else to say other than... Actually, yeah, not really much. Let's just dig in. Only 10 episodes, though, so definitely gonna be a quickie. Episode 1, Charlie gets crippled. Dennis and Dee's dad, Frank, enters their life again. Meanwhile, Charlie has to deal with being crippled and Frank using him. Already a 4 out of 5. Not only the first really good episode of the show, in my opinion, but already better than anything in Season 1. And this is coming from someone who still liked Season 1. So, Danny DeVito really did save the show. And I don't just mean like in terms of production. Literally, FX almost canceled the show to do extremely poor ratings, which was a lot of it was on FX's part, but still, what are you gonna do? Network or stuff. So they were forced to bring in a big guest, and they had to bring in Danny DeVito. And already, Danny DeVito, who plays Dennis and Dee's dad, Frank, we'll get into that later. Yeah, he ends up honestly, right from episode 1, I already really like Frank. Again, I've already seen the whole show. And by that I mean I've seen like the first 8 seasons fully. So I already kind of know what Frank turns into, at least up until season 8, because 9 and man, they're on season 17 now. Yeah, no, I haven't seen any of that yet. So when I get to those season reviews, this will be my first time for those seasons. But yeah, all I gotta know is I love Frank already. The plot's pretty good too. Seeing Frank just automatically just force himself into the gang's dynamic, living with Charlie, using Charlie's apartment, and the fact he's crippled now thanks to Dennis, and just using it to get with the women. Already shows Frank is just as awful as the rest of the gang. And if anything, we're seeing the rest of the gang themselves get even worse compared to how awful they were in season 1. In season 1, they were still obviously jerks, and I feel like it's extremely clear they were jerks, but season 2 and beyond really starts to push it more. This episode, for example, with Dennis and Mac both pretending to be handicapped as well. And then even Dee, who in season 1 was the boring, nice one, or at least the closest thing the gang had to a moral center, seeing her also pretend to have an injury, showing that she's going to start being just as awful as the boys, which also makes her slowly become more of a truly great character and more of a character in general. I really like this episode. Again, I think it's super funny, a lot of really good jokes. For this season in general, I wrote down a lot of favorite moments, which I guess kind of spoils my opinion on the whole season, but I don't care. This is going to be a praise fest, folks. In terms of specific favorite moments, Frank saying, "Your mom's passed." Obviously not. Business tactic. Best way to introduce Frank's character. And then during Dennis and Dee's whole conversation with Frank, Charlie and Mac just being in the room being like, awkward. Dennis making fun of Dee for being a woman. Why not make fun of women? Always, that type of thing is always funny to me. Mac casually saying to the actual genuine handicap guy that he has polio when he tries to pretend to be handicapped, and he just stole Dennis's backstory. Also, Charlie's idea of winning, of like getting with the women, is just pretending to be a war hero, was also really funny to me. And also Dee ripping Dennis's plush and then he's drunk and crying about it to Mac is really funny. So yeah, really good episode. Will I always support watching shows in order, even shows that don't have a ton of continuity? I feel like if I showed someone all of season 1, I hope they'd be like me and still being like, yeah, this is good. Or maybe even better for them, liking it way more than I did. I feel like by this episode, which is the first episode of season 2, they'd be like, man, this is starting to actually get really good. This is starting to really become something. 2. The gang goes jihad. The guys are in threat of losing the bar. Meanwhile, Dee and Frank try to get back at Frank's wife. Compared to episode 1, I don't have nearly as much to say on this episode other than it's another good one. Admittedly, this is one of the rare episodes I've seen just a whole show where it feels like there's barely much going on. It feels like there's because usually there's like a couple of plots and they all kind of interconnect. Last episode was kind of like that, but with this episode, there's really not much going on. We meet Frank's wife, Barbara, and she's just kind of the worst, which is the point of her character. There's also, of course, the threat of losing the bar, and there's some good moments with that, like seeing Charlie, Dennis, and Mac trying to find different ways on how they can try to ruin the guy so that way he can leave. My favorite part of that whole plot line being when they got stuck in the fence and Charlie's just screaming by the end. It's funny to me. Not much else to say. Good, but not anything amazing. 3. Dennis and Dee go on welfare. Dennis and Dee leave the bar to pursue their dreams to become addicts. Addicts of what? Knowing YouTube, I don't think I'm allowed to say. Meanwhile, Frank orders new workers for the bar. Don't have much to say. Another 4. Another pretty good episode. Okay, so I've actually been rewatching some It's Always Sunny with my siblings. Mostly the season, actually pretty much only the seasons I've watched because I really do want to save those later seasons for a real first-time experience, but we haven't watched any season 2 episodes, and it feels so weird going back to season 2 and seeing this version of Frank, because Frank does definitely change, kind of like how the rest of the gang changed even between season 1 to season 2. Seeing Frank trying to be the father figure, because this is when everyone thought Frank was actually Dennis and Dee's dad, it feels so weird, but it's still funny. So don't get me wrong, it's still funny, just different. Don't have much to say other than seeing Dennis and Dee trying to leave, and then thinking they're going to be successful, but actually end up doing poorly. Yeah, moral of their story, always make sure you have a backup plan, which they really should have set the money they got from the bar to the side while they went to pursue their dreams, not become addicts. And I like how by the end, Mac and Charlie are the ones that got rich, while Dennis and Dee were the ones who were pretty much hobos. Frank confronting them all at the end was also extremely funny, probably the best part of the episode. Another pretty good episode here. 4. Mac bangs Dennis's mom. Dennis and Dee try to get out of Charlie work, and Mac does the dirty with Frank's wife, as if the title, Frank's wife, aka Dennis and Dee's mom. Okay, so I guess this needs a bit of explaining. By the end of last episode, Frank made Dennis and Dee do the Charlie work, aka the really bad work that most people probably wouldn't want to do, like cleaning toilets and stuff. So and that's actually one of my favorite things about It's Always Sunny, the fact that you kind of need to watch the episodes in order to really get all the references, unless they're the band episodes, which I sadly have not had the chance to really watch properly because, Hulu and Disney Plus removed them. So yeah, seeing the conclusions of last episode be here is good. I don't have much to say about this one, really. It's good. Just a lot of scheming. Even by this show standards, it's a lot of scheming. Dennis tries to go with the waitress to get out Charlie work. Charlie, finding out Mac, as the title suggested, and trying to use it to get back at Dennis. A good amount's going on, and it's a perfectly good one. Probably one of the weaker episodes of the season. But again, if this is really one of the season's worser episodes, I think it just shows how much I enjoyed watching the season. Also, as creepy as Charlie's obsession with the waitress is, even I felt a little bad for Charlie when I saw his plan completely blow up in his face by the end. 5. $100 Baby. Frank trains Dee while Mac and Dennis make Charlie train underground fighting. Probably the best episode of the show so far. Pretty good. 4 out of 5. The plot with Mac, Dennis, and Charlie felt like an obvious standout. Those 3 in general, And now that I think about it, really any of the gang pairing up, because all five of them, are even at this point, are just have already become such good characters. Just seeing them pair up and do something like this is funny to me. Charlie being really weird about taking his shirt off is really funny to me. Dennis making Mac do the fighting and then purposely betting against him when Mac predictably loses is funny. The deep stuff isn't as good. They kind of try to do this thing about Dean not wanting to be pushed around by the men, and Frank and having his old rival using their daughters to fight. It's still good though. It still has its good moments. So, like Frank making Dee lift weights, which was pretty good, and then Frank accidentally breaking his rival's daughter's neck at the end was also pretty funny. Pretty good episode. And of course, Charlie and Dee both roiding at each other before doing it to before pretty much going to prison for hurting some random guy is hilarious. Now, typically, now that I'm halfway through the season, this is where I have a drink, but I don't have a drink right now. Well, Z-Man isn't always the one with the drinks. Unfortunately, I'm really thirsty though. Well, not a dirty way. Maybe a dirty way. 6. The gang gives back. The gang has to do community service. Okay, sorry, $100 Baby. This one automatically takes your place as the best episode so far, 4 out of 5. The first episode I was seriously considering giving a 5. I don't quite think it's on that level, but the show is slowly getting closer and closer to becoming one of my favorite shows of all time. Honestly, I almost don't even want to say much about this episode. It's just really funny. Frank being in Vietnam, but it's not the Vietnam you're all thinking. But it's not the specific point in Vietnam you're all thinking about. Dennis trying to pick the team and since it's a basketball team, we all know what type of people Dennis was trying to pick. That kid who just wears the flip flops and then later calls Dennis his dad. And then he gives Dennis the diet soda, and Dennis is like, "Do you look like you need to be on a diet?" Frank's betting friends watching the game, the children's game casually, and then Charlie being the referee to get with the waitress. It's really good, really good. Also, Mac calls Dee Big Bird, which I believe is a bit of a precursor to Dee's whole running gag of being a bird, which she is. She's like 85% bird, 25% whatever type of loser thing Dee is. 7. Gang exploits a miracle. A stain in the bar looks like the Virgin Mary, and the gang, well, you know what they do. As we all know what the gang's like at this point, right? We all know they're awful people. I don't think I really need to go into specifics at this point. I feel like at this point, all I need to say is the gang does blank for an episode, and I feel like you kind of get the picture. Another really good one, 4 out of 5. Probably slightly weaker than the previous episode, but again, really feels like the writers are slowly hitting their stride. Frank instantly knowing they can use this whole thing as a gold mine. His classic Frank shows how good he is with business stuff. There's also Rickety Cricket, who is such a depressing character throughout the show, and having this be the start of his journey. Great start for his character. But Dee is probably a big highlight in this episode in general. Seeing her try to get with Cricket just so she can feel better about herself and not feel ugly is really funny. I'd probably say Dee's the least great out of the gang in general, so it's always nice when they give her a really good episode like this to show that she could be just as funny as the guys. I honestly don't have a ton to say, other than Charlie being a blesser, which was probably the highlight stuff. The only part of this episode I probably didn't care for was the whole Dennis fasting thing, or just Dennis not eating. Wasn't bad, but I also didn't find it extremely funny. Kind of just felt fillery, kind of like they didn't know what to give Dennis for the episode. But other than that one, honestly, nitpick, this is another really good episode, and another one I was close to giving a 5. At least just purely for the Cricket stuff, and also Charlie being a blesser. 8. Gang runs for office. The gang enters politics. Take a guess how that works out. We have done it, gang. 5 out of 5, baby. If the past 2 episodes were the show trying to find itself, then this this is when the show, in my opinion, truly gets great. I don't even want to say a lot because I don't want to spoil it for you. Dennis basically tries to run for a small town thing, just so he can get money from it, but then starts getting cocky with himself and starts believing he can do it. Charlie being his campaign manager, and right, it probably has one of the best scenes of the whole show with him writing the script that Dennis obviously can't read out loud, which really shows just how illiterate Charlie is. The union guys messing with Mac because they call us nerds. The Frank and D stuff is probably the worst part of this episode, and even it has a few good moments. Just a great episode, honestly. I feel like a lot of different It's Always Sunny fans are going to have their episode where they think the show gets good, truly gets amazing. And some people may think that it was just from the beginning. But for me, I think Gang Grunts for Office really is at least the first truly great episode of the show. Not sure how controversial of a pick that is. I don't think a lot of people really talk about this episode. So I guess in a way, I find this episode very underrated in that regard. 9. Charlie Goes America all over everybody's buns. Obviously, it's not actually buns, but I'm not going to even risk saying it and getting this video demonetized or even unlisted. Call me a baby all you want, but I want people to see this video. Mac and Dennis show freedom in the bar, and Frank uses freedom for his betting group. D becomes a street performer, and Charlie's American. Another 5 out of 5. I probably like the Office one a little bit more. I think it's a little bit funnier, but this is still another truly great episode. And another one where it's clearly just the show being the show at this point. Towards the end of the season especially, I really do get the vibe that this really is the show, just being the show. There's not even much to say here. All the plot lines are great. It's great seeing how the gang interact with each other. Frank's betting group stuff was probably the highlight, especially with the end, with the game they play at the end. That was so dark, but so funny to me. And of course, who could forget Charlie's Rock Flag and Eagle song. That's just an amazing moment of the entire show. And knowing how early we are in the show's run, and the moment that iconic is truly nice for something so early. Another amazing episode, honestly, and another episode that really shows just how great the show's become. And 10, the final episode, baby. And only 17 minutes so far with this video, at least from what I'm seeing. So this is definitely going to be a shorter video, which knowing the whole mass fiasco I had to deal with the last time, I'm definitely okay with a shorter video. This episode is Dennis and Dee get a new dad. Dennis and Dee meet their real dad. Meanwhile, Mac and Charlie reconnect with Mac's dad. Sadly, not the best finale. It's good, it's a 4, but probably the least good episode of the season, which again, if this is the weakest episode, that shows just how good of a season of television this is, because this is still a perfectly good episode, nowhere near close to a 3, in fact. I guess the problem is, since that Dennis and Dee's real dad Bruce, there's not a lot of opportunities for really funny moments when Dennis and Dee, and later also their mom, hang out with a genuinely nice person. But them at the children's hospital was really funny. It's really Mac, Charlie, and Frank that get the real best moments in this episode. That whole subplot with Mac and Charlie trying to reconnect with Mac's dad was really the highlight here. And Frank was just at his peak. From this point on, Frank is really no longer Dennis and Dee's dad. Which again, this whole season they hype up Frank being like, oh, yeah, we have our dad as a part of the gang now. But after this season, and admittedly, one nitpick I have for the show is that they rarely bring up the fact that from this point on, the Frank's their dad, because he's technically more of their stepdad, but still, they just casually hang out with him, call him by his first name. That's weird, right? To any It's Always Sunny fans, I'm not weird for thinking that that's weird, right? Please tell me this isn't just a me thing, and there's at least a few other fans out there that agree with me. You're obviously not going to say it because no one comments or even really watches these videos, but you know what I mean. Good, but not. And I guess I should talk about the episode in general. Good, but not like anything special, but still a perfectly good episode for the season to go out on. Okay, so in terms of the list, it's only 10 episodes, and they're all 4s. Well, actually, the top 2 are 5s, but the rest of them are 4s. So one of the rare seasons where I liked all the episodes here. At the bottom, we have Dennis and Dee get a new dad. Mac bangs Dennis's mom. Gang goes jihad. Dennis and Dee go on welfare. Charlie gets crippled. And for the top 5, we have $100 Baby. Gang exploits a miracle. Gang gives back. Charlie goes America over everybody's buns. And Gang runs for office. Those top 2 especially, and even Gives Back and Exploits a Miracle are also really close as well. They're both really close to being 5s. I know there are a lot of fans out there that act like season 3 is when the show gets great, but personally, I wouldn't say season 2 is great. I think season 2 is and the first 2 seasons in general are really underrated. At least with season 1, I kind of get it, because season 1's good, but that's really it. And season 1 even had a few episodes I straight up thought were just kind of mid. And by that I mean 2, because it was a 7-episode season. Season 2, if season 1 was the show getting started, season 2 was the show slowly speed running. With the introduction of Frank, who really does become such a great part of the cast, it feels like the show is really starting to fire on more cylinders. And hopefully, when I get around to season 3, which will be sooner enough, especially better than the wait between season 2 and season 1, I gotta get better at really going through more shows, or at least more seasons of the same show. Well, I will then hopefully with season 3 and on, you get to hear me praise the show even more. Well, we'll hopefully still having interesting discussions about it. Thanks for watching, and it's always sunny with Z-Man. Of course it's not. It's never sunny with Z-Man.